Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Criterion, your regular magazine of the movies, looking at new and forthcoming releases in the collection. And in this edition, we'll be taking a look at the first Eclipse series coming to Blu-ray, and it's number 47, Abbas Kiarostami, early shorts and features, coming to the collection on Blu-ray. The Eclipse series is a well-established series devised by Criterion to spotlight work by certain directors. Eclipse presents a selection of lost, forgotten or overshadowed films in simple, affordable editions. Each series is a brief cinematheque retrospective for the adventurous home viewer. Now, in total, there have been, up to now, 47 Eclipse series editions. The first, of course, was a retrospective of Ingmar Bergman, but up to now they've only been available on DVD. But for many collectors, they have still occupied a hallowed place in their collection, and they have striven to collect all of the Eclipse series titles. Now, Criterion have now decided to start with the last Eclipse series, that's number 47, and bringing it to us on Blu-ray. It's a retrospective of 17 films, both short and feature length, spanning the career of the Iranian filmmaker Abbas Kiarostami from 1973 through to 1989. Now, these films show his maturing as a filmmaker who produced short educational films for Iranian schools. They were using them to more narratively let features. Many feature, of course, young boys as their main subjects. Now, nothing new here, of course, because his later films like the Coker trilogy and especially The Wind Will Carry Us also featured boys. Now, I won't be examining every single film in this set. It would be a very long video if I chose to do that. But I have taken just a few out of the set, and I'll leave the rest for you to discover yourself, if indeed you decide to purchase this set. Now, the films, as I said, were made in the 70s, and they tended to be short and aimed primarily at children in a mixture of documentary style and occasionally animation as a supplement to their education. Kiarostami helped set up a filmmaking department at the Institute for Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults, Kanun, in Tehran. Now, its debut production and Kiarostami's first film was the 12-minute short Bread and Ali, a 1970 film and a neo-realistic short about a schoolboy's confrontation with an aggressive dog. Now, not long after that, he made Break Time, that followed in 1972, and following that, Experience in 1973. Kiarostami released The Traveller, Mustafar, in 1974. Now, The Traveller tells the story of Qasem Julali, a troubled and troublesome boy from a small Iranian city. He is intent on attending a football match in far-off Tehran, and he scams his friends and neighbours to raise money, and journeys to the stadium in time for the game. Only, of course, to meet with an ironic twist of fate. And in addressing the boy's determination to reach his goal, alongside his indifference to the effects of his immoral actions, the film examines human behaviour and the balance of right and wrong. Now, this film furthered Kiarostami's reputation for realism, simplicity and stylistic complexity, as well, of course, as his fascination with physical and spiritual journeys. Now, in 1975, Kiarostami directed two short films, So Can I and Two Solutions for One Problem. In early 1976, he released Colours, followed by the 54-minute film A Wedding Suit. Now, this is a story about three teenagers coming into conflict over a suit for a wedding. Kiarostami then directed Report, 1977, with a 112-minute runtime, much longer this time, it was considerably longer than his previous work. The film revolved around the life of a tax collector accused of accepting bribes. Suicide was among its themes. And in 1979, he produced and directed First Case, Second Case. Now, in the early 1980s, Kiarostami directed several short films, including Toothache from 1980, Orderly or Disorderly from 1981, and The Chorus from 1982. And in 1983, he directed Fellow Citizen. Now, having gone through that list, let's take a closer look now behind a few of these films. During the filming of The Bread and Alley in 1970, Kiarostami had major differences with his experienced cinematographer about how to film the boy and the attacking dog. Now, while the cinematographer wanted separate shots of the boy approaching, a close-up of his hand as he enters the house, for instance, and closes the door, followed by a shot of a dog, Kiarostami believed that if the three scenes could actually be captured as a whole, it would have a more profound impact in creating tension over the situation. That one shot took around 40 days to film, until Kiarostami was fully content, of course, with the scene. Now, Kiarostami later commented that the breaking of scenes would have disrupted the rhythm and the content of the film's structure, and he preferred to let the scene flow as one. And this is a very good example of the start of how Kiarostami approached his filmmaking technique. Now, The Traveller is a 1974 Iranian film, and it's directed by Abbas Kiarostami, and the film depicts a troubled but resourceful boy's quest to attend a football match at any cost, and his indifference to the effects of his actions on other people, even those closest to him and his family. Thematically, the film explores childhood, conventions, and the origins of moral and amoral behaviour. Visually, of course, it affords a candid glimpse of Iranian life in the early 1970s. Qasem Jalali, played by Hassan Darabi, is a football-obsessed 12-year-old in the small city of Malaya, who would rather compete in the alley of his impoverished neighbourhood after school than actually do his homework. His illiterate mother constantly berates him, but Hassim has long since learned to invent excuses for his poor school performance. And in one early scene in the film, we see him arriving late to school after going out of his way to purchase a football fan magazine. And he appears later with a bandage around his head, feigning a toothache. A few moments later, Hassim's sceptical teacher spots the magazine and snatches it away, only to start reading it himself. The boy resolves to travel by himself to Tehran, that's a 150-mile bus ride away, to attend an important football game. Bus fare, however, is 10 tomans, and the penniless Hassim pilfers 5 tomans that his mother has hidden away. But the next day, she discovers the theft and promptly reports it to the school principal, who not only berates her for raising a monster, but canes Hassim's hands for refusing to admit his guilt. Now, this film has a moral centre, of course, and a quest film that's also a study of youthful obsession. It's filmed in edgy black and white, with a quiet energy that matches its heroes. Now, The Traveller has an accurately ironic ending as well, and one of the best performances given by a child in Kiarostami's early work. Great kudos indeed goes to Hassan Darabi as the young protagonist here. Now, in A Wedding Suit, made in 1976, we have one of the lesser-known gems of Kiarostami's early career. A Wedding Suit tells the story of a teenage tailor's apprentice who's pressured by 2 boys who want to borrow a suit from him for the evening. Now, a coming-of-age fable about bad friendship and the social codes of adulthood. A Wedding Suit is also an evocative poem to Tehran, and it's seen from street level, in fact from the point of view of boys longing to become men. Ostensibly an educational film for children, this short film seems to condense everything that is wonderful about Kiarostami's cinema into one comical, philosophical, slightly non-fictional and perhaps slightly political and certainly Tate-esque offering. In his early graphic trance-inducing style, he proceeds to make comparisons between each of the title's antonyms under different circumstances, until of course those circumstances fall beyond the control of either the filmmaker or the police officer at hand. And one of the most accomplished and intricately plotted of Abbas Kiarostami's Kanun films, this sharply observed drama contains suspense, satire, and an undercurrent of violence, and even a magic show. Shot on 16mm film, Toothache is the 10th of the 12 short movies that Kiarostami made at the filmmaking department of the Institute for the Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults, Kanun, between 1970 and 1982. Now, this film is concerned with teaching children why they must care for their teeth and brush them regularly. It's certainly the longest and most didactic in tone and the most highly structured of all Kiarostami's short films. Now, to illustrate its point, the film also contains 10 animated shots, handled by Abdullah Ali Morad and Mehdi Samakar, showing, among other things, little green tooth trolls pickaxing holes in a number of teeth. Toothache is, however, not the first of Kiarostami's Kanun films to use animation. That, of course, was So Can I from 1975, which is also featured in this set. Now, in Iran, the film was apparently given an excellent reception by pupils and teachers, and it enjoyed quite a wide circulation as a result. Since Kiarostami has gained international acclaim through his feature films, Toothache, which had its international premiere at Locarno in 1995, it's been shown, of course, at numerous film festivals throughout the world since, and it's received scholarly attention from academics as well, who don't necessarily agree with Jonathan Rosenbaum's assessment of the film as being a simple piece of didacticism about dental hygiene. Fellow Citizen from 1983 is an Iranian documentary from Kiarostami that follows a traffic cop tasked with enforcing a new city decree restricting access to a part of Tehran. Reviews describe the film as both strange and mundane, focusing on the absurd and futile arguments that take place between the officer and drivers, attempting to break the rules and the human capacity for finding ways to bend regulations. Now, some critics saw this as an allegory for the ingenuity of the Iranian people in persevering through daily life and, of course, changing political regimes. This documentary is about a traffic officer on duty in Tehran after a new law restricted traffic in a section of the city. The film explores themes of bureaucracy, social authority and human ingenuity as drivers try to argue or find ways around the rules, and the officer still maintains his position throughout. The film is described as a strange comic documentary that showcases the absurdity of everyday interactions and the human tendency to seek exemptions from rules. First Graders was a remarkable early work in the Iranian giant's canon. It reiterated his impressive ability to evoke nuanced renderings from children that he'd already demonstrated up until then, exquisitely presaging the two magnificent films that, of course, he made subsequently, which arguably remain among the greatest works involving children, and that's Where is the Friend's House and Homework. And it provided glimpses of his adroitness in complementing wry social observations with bold modernist impulses. Now, this simultaneously deadpan and somewhat playful documentary impishly subverted the form through recordings of seemingly spontaneous interactions that took place that must have been subtly coloured by the presence of a camera in the periphery, albeit a hidden camera. Well, that was set completely within the confines of a school for boys from lower economic backgrounds, and it was located at a working-class neighbourhood in Tehran. filmed alternatively among chaotic outdoor gatherings and in intimate indoor spaces. Differential focus was accorded to how the school's surprisingly patient and ostensibly even-handed principal manifested the paternalistic and moralistic tendencies of the larger society, spending an inordinate amount of time disciplining, chiding, instructing and consoling kids and counselling kids at his chamber for a variety of childish infarctions that were as deeply relative of their social contexts as the carefree worlds that they inhabited. Although mostly tight in scope and framing, Kiarostami at times delectably cut loose with amusingly observing kids in candid group settings, and even through something as digressive as a euphorically floating plastic bag. Now, as I said earlier, time doesn't permit me to examine all the films in this excellent Eclipse set, but I do hope that's given you a bit of a taster of Kiarostami's earlier work. I would say that many films here are short and they lack the greater depth his longer form work that was to follow would deliver. But if you are a fan of his style of filmmaking, you will enjoy this set. Now here is a full list of all the films in this set, their running times and aspect ratios, and it's on the screen now. And the set comes as 3 Blu-ray discs in an Amaray case and not the usual digipack presentation. It has an outer card slipcase which seals the set so it can be stored on the shelf. And of course it's smaller in height than the DVD version of the Eclipse set. It comes with a booklet, and that contains a supplemental essay by the critic Ehsan Koshbakht. It's priced moderately, and of course through the month of November. It's also on offer at the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale. And the fact they've started at the end of the Eclipse series means that they won't necessarily be working backwards, but there will be speculation for sure on which set they will decide to issue on Blu-ray next. And that would probably be in 2026. Certainly, if you missed out on these rich sets, now is your chance to start collecting them and augment your collections. Next time on Let's Talk Criterion, we'll be taking a look at Howard Hughes' classic film from 1930. That's Hell's Angels, coming to the collection with a new 4K digital restoration of the Magnascope Roadshow version. So from me, until next time, as always, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.